um, I had a session with one of my former boss's children who had a broken clavicle that was 6 weeks, wasn't healing well. He had decreased range of motion, the whole thing. And he was an absolute total skeptic because he was there basically because his wife follows me on social media and his dad said, just kind of shut up and do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, today he messaged me because I told him he would need a second session. And he messaged me and he's like, I don't know what you did, but like I could only lift my arm up to 90 degrees. I'm up to 180. The pain is better. And can I have the name of your occupational therapist so I can go do another session? So I found that pretty funny because, he's skeptical like your husband,
Right.
like almost skeptical to a nastiness, but
Yeah.
I'm just glad he got a good result.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Well, I don't have it. I had to talk to Lisa. I haven't talked to her. I talked to her right after her surgery, and not since.
Hello, I'm here.
Hey, Carrie.
Are we a party of three?
No,
You haven't, no one else is in yet?
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people.
Oh,
I get a
yay!
glass of water. I'll be back in 1 second.
Okay, you're allowed to. Hey, Shino. I'm not ignoring you. I owe you emails.
Hi, no worries.
I've just been drinking from a fire hose. And now I'm eating cabbage and my chicken salad.
It seems like everybody's eating cabbage right now.
Oh, God.
Why are you eating cabbage, Beth?
Because it's my favorite. I love Asian salads.
Oh, yeah, they're so good.
They are good.
And they're just so cruciferous-y.
Yeah.
Like they stay crunchy. And they don't go bad in the fridge. Like they last for a while.
Yeah, that's nice too.
What lasts for a while?
When I do cabbage, like an Asian salad, Asian slaw.
Oh yeah, cabbage lasts forever.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm growing a
Jenny.
lot of cabbage this summer. I have decided that I love cabbage.
Good. Hey, Desiree, how you doing, baby?
Funny thing is I made cabbage. So I grew cabbage. I don't know why, because I never ate cabbage. But then I was like, I'm going to make cabbage. So I made this cabbage dish. It was kind of a little Asian style. And I was like, it's so good. I'm like, so I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, you got to try this cabbage dish. She's like, oh, I love cabbage. It's my favorite vegetable. And I'm like, well, how did I not ever eat it when I was a kid then?
That's so funny.
Stacey, have you ever made sauerkraut?
No.
You should try it. It's really good fermented.
Yeah.
I made kimchi soup the other night. My husband was like loving it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I have kimchi. I sometimes hold my nose and eat a piece just for the benefits, health benefits, but I have to learn how to make it.
Switch to another.
It's only 5:02, Stacey, so the rest of us were early.
Which is shocking for me. Okay, let's see.
Let's keep your baby alive, shall we?
I think Joe was worried when he saw the size dish of cabbage I was eating, like probably not wanting to sleep in the same bed with me. But tough shit, no pun intended.
It activates phase 2 detoxification.
I am detoxifying
With the
Purifan.
sulforaphane. Thank you.
Easy for you to say.
I have people issues.
I'm gonna go on mute so you don't hear me chew. Hey, Kim, and you can get going, Stace, because it's gonna be recorded now.
Well, too.
All right. So I'm gonna share my screen.
Why does it say it's not recording yet, Christina?
So whoever's the host needs to
freeze.
allow
It's recording
sharing.
on my computer.
Oh.
Who's the host?
It announced that it was recording.
Did.
You're muted, Beth. Okay.
So whoever's in the host, can you allow sharing?
Yes, let's see.
Are you in Mexico?
Not yet. I got my toes done though today.
Nice.
She's talking about me with my
Yeah.
background.
Anyway, you got. I made you the host, Stacey. So you should
Oh.
share now.
Thank you.
Okay, and it's
The
still
host, it
recording.
says the host isn't allowing sharing for this meeting.
Christina, did you just touch it again?
No, I clicked on it and it says it's not allowing sharing, and I said okay. Hold on a minute.
I'm not the host, I don't
It doesn't
think.
even give me an option to turn it on to allow it. Let me see.
I'm trying to make Stacey the host.
You just allow sharing? I don't have to be the host.
I don't think you can. I think you have to make the host to share.
Transfer meeting to room, docs, whiteboard, meeting info.
Okay, it says the meeting's being recorded. I see that.
Yeah.
It still says the host is not allowing sharing.
Interesting. Because I didn't. Let me see.
It's you. It's on you as the host, Christina. You have to do it. You've got to hit her button. Well, Stacey, start talking while we fix this.
Okay, well, I got some good slides while you're waiting. Okay, so I was going to talk about environmental toxins because they probably affect all of us in some way. You know, the first thing you think about is like how does it present? So kind of what are the different things that you might see as a result of environmental toxins? Because you probably don't know you're being exposed to them, right? So the Institute of Functional Medicine really categorizes these into 5 separate areas. You know, the first one is neurologic and psychiatric toxins or toxicity. So that might present with concentration or memory issues. Sometimes it's going to present with ADHD, like in kids, headaches, insomnia. It could be autonomic dysfunction, neuropathy. It could also present as neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or mood disorders. I think like the classic one I think of for this would be a lead toxicity. Remember when lead was an issue with lead-based paints? And I think there were some lead pipes, and it caused cognitive disorders or slow development in kids, and also behavioral issues, which is, I guess, how they initially found it. The second kind of
Sorry,
thing we think
Stacey,
about.
sharing is should be an option for you now.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna put this as a slideshow. And there we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking about the patterns of toxicity. The second kind is like an immune or immunologic toxicity. So when we think of immunologic toxicity, that might be something that presents, has like allergies or asthma, adverse reactions to drugs, inflammatory diseases or autoimmune diseases, dermatitis like eczema. And sometimes people who have these sensitivities might be really hypersensitive to food reactions. I don't have a good example for that one. The third one we think about is metabolic and mitochondria. I think this has been in the news lately. I think with the AG, what is it? The not the Attorney General, the Surgeon General nomination from the woman. What's her name? Beth? Casey Means. So Casey Means, and she wrote a book called Good Energy. So that's really looking at how do your mitochondrial function, and some of that's dependent on nutrition, but toxins can also affect mitochondrial function. Some of the side effects you might see in that category might be obesity, metabolic syndrome, which is like central obesity or fatty liver, issues with kidney dysfunction, atherosclerosis, the heart or the carotid arteries. One of the talks I was actually on was talking about microplastics, and they did a study looking at patients that underwent carotid endarterectomies, and in these patients, they were testing the plaque that was removed from the carotid artery where it was narrowed, and about 20% of them were found to contain microplastics. Now, whether that contributed to risk or not, wasn't the purpose of the study, but it's just interesting that we're exposed to so many microplastics that they're showing up in like our coronary artery disease or our artery disease. Fatigue, fibromyalgia, also osteoporosis. Toxins that can cause osteoporosis that come to mind are alcohol. Also, something like aluminum fluoride can cause issues with bone because heavy metals tend to get absorbed by the bone. Fourth category is endocrine disruption or endocrine toxicity. That can be, hormonal abnormalities. So that might be thyroid related. It can affect the adrenal axis, which is like your cortisol. We can see metabolic syndrome from that or type 2 diabetes. Also in females, you might see changes, either premature onset of puberty, which I think we're seeing some of. And, we wonder what environmental toxin might contribute to that. I think for a while concern was with BPA because it has BPA, if you guys remember, is a plasticizer that leaches from plastic when it's, so you can absorb it through your body, either through food or touching it. And, one thought was, could that be contributing? We know we've taken BPA out of bottles, but it used to be in baby bottles and all those plastics. And then, that can also cause decreased sperm counts in males. Or PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So these are kind of things you want to keep in mind. Sometimes it's not related to toxins, but sometimes it is. So it's just something that should be on our radars. And then, of course, the ones we always worry about is genotoxicity or carcinogenesis. So that's, meaning, is it causing or increasing the risk of cancer? So we know some toxins do, like cigarette smoke increases the risk of lung cancer. Alcohol increases the risk of breast cancer. And then there's also, can cause developmental disorders if you're getting it during pregnancy. And, some of the toxins that come to mind as far as that's genotoxicity, right, is like, do you guys remember like thalidomide back in the 70s or early, it's actually in the 60s where women were given thalidomide for nausea and it was causing babies to be born without limbs. So it affected like thousands of children. Or DES, which is a synthetic estrogen that was given to support pregnancy in the 70s. And now we're seeing the fallout from that is those women, those babies that were exposed to that toxin in utero have higher risk of breast and vaginal clear cell cancer. So there's different patterns we can look at. And sometimes there's overlap, some like if you look at aluminum toxicity might cause cognitive impairment. So it affects neurologic and psychiatric. It could cause osteomalacia or osteoporosis. So it affects endocrine and also can cause decreased sperm count. So there may be overlap with toxins between different categories. So there's also susceptibility. So what affects you may not affect somebody else. So that could be the amount of toxin that you're exposed to. Like, let's take arsenic. Sometimes people are exposed to arsenic, a lot of arsenic over time because it's in their water. It can sometimes be in foods. So it's the length of exposure and the amount of exposure that you have. It's also the strength of the toxin. How, does it take a lot to be toxic? Does it take a little to be toxic? And then there's individual susceptibility, which might be your nutritional status, your GI status, or affected by different small abnormalities in your, not abnormalities, I shouldn't say abnormalities, but changes in your genome or your genetic makeup. So all three of those kind of affect our overall risk. So when we think of like the spectrum of vulnerability, so when like the government is studying a toxin, I keep going back to arsenic because I have arsenic filters in my house because we had arsenic issues in our water before I moved in. They were put in. But when they look at the average threshold of harm, the average threshold they come up with is that means that it, let's say the level is 1 milligram per liter, that 50% of people are going to get sick from that 1 milligram per liter, and 50% of people wouldn't be affected. And they bring that out what's called 2 standard deviations, and that incorporates like 96% of then the population. And then that's where they set their parameters. So they say it has to be below 0.2, because if it's below 0.2, 96% of the population is not going to get affected. And 2% of them are going to be not sensitive at all. And then there's this 2% of this bottom end that they're super sensitive to that level, and they're affected by that small level of whatever the toxin is. So this is kind of where we're seeing issues. Sometimes we're seeing issues in here because the levels are higher than they're supposed to be, and sometimes we're seeing issues because we're just more sensitive to it. So, we think about like how much exposure is too much. So I made these on Grok image. Isn't that crazy? It's not the best image. Somebody else could have probably done better, but I don't have any skills in that regard. So
yeah, but it's better than stealing an image. They're beautiful, Stace.
Isn't it nice? Yeah. So you think about, you kind of have a glass, and as long as you're below that top of that glass, and you're filling it up, maybe drinking it, filling it up and drinking it, you're not going to overflow, and it's not going to cause toxicity. So we can metabolize a certain amount of toxin and it doesn't affect us. Whereas, if we're overflowing that level of toxicity and that toxin flowing in faster, or we're not metabolizing it fast enough, then we're going to see it spill over. And that's when we see toxicity develop from that toxin. So that's again, how much are we being exposed to? How much of it can we metabolize? So there's different things that can increase individual susceptibility. So that's for you, right? So one, continued exposure. We keep, getting exposed to the same toxin, and it accumulates in our system, and we overflow that glass. Nutrient deficiencies are a big issue. This detoxification, or removing those toxins from our bodies, is very nutrient dependent. Okay, so we need to get all those vitamins and antioxidants and phytonutrients, which is why our, having that healthy diet is so important, because our body needs those nutrients to be able to metabolize, have energy, but also metabolize toxins that we're exposed to. Now, if we're eating like a highly processed food intake, which I think become more prominent in the news lately, but highly processed foods tends to contain more chemicals. So you might have more toxin exposure, but also lacks in nutrients. So if you're eating highly processed foods, you might be not getting the amount of nutrients that you should have, and you're not effectively then able to metabolize these toxins. It's also dependent on protein and amino acids. Stress or emotional trauma can affect our ability to metabolize toxins. Intestinal dysbiosis also. So interestingly enough, like our estrogen gets metabolized. It goes through a couple steps for metabolism, and in the end step, it gets excreted, maybe through the bile into the intestines. There's probably different pathways as well. But if you have intestinal dysbiosis, which means you have overgrowth of maybe bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria, then they can produce an enzyme that kind of cleave the estrogen. So now we can't excrete it again, and now we're getting reabsorbed, and it has to go through that whole process again, because the bacteria in our gut are kind of reversing the process that our liver took care of. So that can be important. And then also there's genetic variants, they're called SNPs, where that might affect our ability to detoxify these different toxins. So this is, I did steal this one, Beth. I stole this one from one of my talks because I thought it was pretty good. But this is So there's two different processes of detoxification that mostly occur in your liver, but they occur in other parts of your body as well. One is phase one, and that's where we're trying, and what the purpose of detoxification is to change the profile of whatever the toxin is so that our body can excrete it. So excretion usually depends on making it soluble in water. So a lot of these toxins are kind of lipids or fatty based, and they, fat, oil, and water don't mix together. We want to make them able to be excreted in water. So our body goes through a two-stage detoxification. So phase one is the first change, and after it goes through phase one, it can be reactive. Have you ever heard of free radicals, that term? So you kind of get free radicals from phase one detoxification. So we want to be, if we have like a lot of stuff we're detoxifying in phase one, we want to make sure that that moves through that process through phase two, so we get rid of it in our body. Because otherwise, even though we're getting through phase one, we're getting a buildup of these what we call free radicals that can cause tissue damage. So we have to, when we want to look at nutrient dependent, we want to make sure we're supporting both of these phases of detoxification. But that's how our body kind of gets these drugs and hormones, alcohol, additives, insecticides, and then the household products you're exposed to all the time. That's how our body gets rid of these. And we end up excreting it once it's through this process. We're able to excrete it then in the feces, in the breath. It can be excreted through sweat in the skin, and also, through the urine and through the bile. So there's lots of ways we can get rid of it. So, the skin, you actually do, get rid of toxins. That's why saunas are so, are good, because you actually, if you can tolerate them, it detoxifies because you sweat out some of those toxins. The problem is you have to rinse off those toxins. Otherwise, your body, your skin, which is very good at absorbing things, absorbs the toxins back in. So I don't know if any of you guys go into saunas, but that can be, that's we know that helps with detoxification as well. So, there's lots of sources of environmental toxins. They're pretty much everywhere, right? That's a problem with environmental toxins. Now, people ask me, what do you think caused, when we think about breast cancer, we know that only 20% of breast cancer is familial, meaning you have some family history of breast cancer. And 80% we're saying is not familial, it's environmental, right? So what is the environmental toxins? It's very hard to pinpoint one environmental toxin because we're exposed to so many, right? So, when we talk about, I talk to people, we're talking about like, how can you, reduce toxic burden, right? Because we know there's food sources for toxins. There's plenty of household sources that we don't even think about. Cosmetics, I always had a really big issue with wearing lipstick because it kind of grossed me out that you end up eating all of that, right? Because eventually it goes away, and most of it probably goes into your GI tract. So what's in your lipstick, might be important. And some of those red lipsticks, I think, can have some, higher toxic burden. Air pollution, we have indoor air pollution, outdoor air pollution. Microplastics are ubiquitous in our environment. There's electromagnetic, I can't spell electromagnetic apparently, but electromagnetic radiation. And, there's it's a big concern with dental amalgams and mercury exposure. And also dental, even like some of the substances they use can have BPA in them because they're plastics or plasticizers. So there's lots of places that we can be exposed. And, even like think about, I wanted to put a little picture of my dog on here, but I didn't get a chance. But, are you spraying your dog with flea and tick remover? And you're petting your dog and you're exposed to those same chemicals. So, really put some thought into kind of what's in your environment and what can you change. You can't make yourself crazy. You got to go outside and, you're going to move around and get exposed to things. But if you can, your body can handle a lot of toxic load. It's just that how are we burdening it, and can we cut back on that overburden? So food sources of toxins, obviously, especially if we're eating processed foods, there's going to be lots of chemicals in those. I'm sure you've read the back of them, and you probably, you read something at the back of, certain food products, and you're like, what are all these different ingredients? So trying to stay away from processed foods as much as possible. There's herbicides and pesticides that go on our plants. Those plants are also eaten by animals. There's organic compounds, there's heavy metals, and then there's cookware and there's storage, food storage. So there's lots of different sources of toxins that we see in our food. So herbicides and pesticides, those can be endocrine disruptors. So we know, I don't want to put a number. I saw there was, I think it was there was approximately 800 herbicides and pesticides that are approved by the FDA, and maybe 158 of them have been identified as possible endocrine disruptors. When I say endocrine disruptors, meaning it could affect your how your hormones work in your body. And then there's carcinogens, and it's hard to pinpoint what's a carcinogen and what's not. But the thought is take glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup. You guys are familiar with Roundup, I'm sure. That's sprayed on corn and soybean crops because those are genetically modified to not be killed by Roundup, whereas all the other plants are. And that gets in the water and potentially broken, but it's supposed to get broken down. But if you're looking at wheat is sprayed with glyphosate to kill it. So there's still residual glyphosate. So when you're looking at wheat, there's, a chance that you could have glyphosate because that's sprayed right before harvest, because if they kill off the wheat with the glyphosate, they can harvest it earlier. And that has been linked maybe to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, probably other problems as well. But it's hard to do the studies because, again, everybody's exposed to so many different things. It's hard to kind of parse those out. Just kind of like you see caffeine's good, caffeine's bad, caffeine's good, caffeine's bad, because it depends on who's looking at it. So the Environmental Working Group is a great website. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that is a great website to get information on these different things. It's one of my favorite resources. And they come up with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which are vegetables. I will say that there's been no data to show that some people who eat a non-organic diet necessarily have a higher risk of cancer compared to an organic diet. So it's always better to eat your vegetables, even if they're not organic. So for people who not everybody can afford to buy stuff organic. It's still better to eat a variety of vegetables, even if they're not organic, than to not eat them. So the Dirty Dozen, unfortunately, some of my favorite foods always fall in the Dirty Dozen, which are all these strawberries and blueberries and blackberries, which are great because they have lots of phytonutrients and lots of fiber. So those these are kind of the ones that fall. Spinach is way up there. Potatoes made the Dirty Dozen. So these are things that maybe the Dirty Dozen is labeled that because these are the ones that have the highest pesticide and herbicide retention of the vegetables and fruits that were tested by the Environmental Working Group. Now, sometimes it's hard to get rid of these herbicides and pesticides with just washing in water. That water doesn't really decrease it that much. There was a study that did show if you wash it in a baking soda bath, that you have a better chance of removing more of the pesticides and herbicides from the surface of the fruit or vegetable that you're washing. So that's something you can consider if you're buying these types of vegetables non-organic. But some of that herbicide and pesticides penetrate through the skin and into the pulp of the vegetable or the fruit. So that's why it's hard to get rid of it on some of these. So, like apples, you could consider peeling them. So you might remove more of it with peeling. You lose some of the nutrients. It's always like a 50-50, catch-22, right? you fix one thing and you damage another. And then we have the Clean 15. So the Clean 15 are probably where, if you don't really need to spend the extra money to get organic because they don't really carry pesticides with them. So there's lots of stuff on there that, it's, you can save a couple bucks by buying these different Clean 15 things. And onions, onions, I can never remember which is onions and which is potatoes. So I think every time I go shopping, I have to look up whether it's potatoes or onions that are the ones I need to buy organic. And I think I mess it up about 50% of the time. But these are ones maybe you save your money on and just buy whatever's available. And also you can shop local. So if you're shopping local for your vegetables or your meats, you don't have, things are transported, you don't know what it is exposed to during transportation. So, it's coming from Mexico and it's traveling all over the place. You don't know what it's being carried with or what it's being exposed to. So the more you can buy local, that's probably a better option to probably get better nutrition if you're buying local because it's not as old. Next thing, heavy metals. So heavy metals are kind of like arsenic is in the soil and the water. I think I said before, I have arsenic filters in my house because we had elevated levels of arsenic apparently in our water before we moved in. When we moved in, we had it tested and it was fine. Mercury, whoops, I don't know what I just did. Okay, mercury, that can be from dental amalgams. We know that those dental amalgams, those silver ones we got put in as kids can leak mercury. So that can, affect some people more than others. Different fish have different levels of mercury. So mercury can be bioconcentrated. And what I mean by bioconcentrated is the small fish kind of get the mercury initially, and then each fish that kind of eats, so, the salmon eats the krill, the trout eats the salmon, and the shark eats the trout, and has each bigger animal eats the smaller one, it gets more, the mercury gets more and more concentrated in the tissue. So like when you're looking at halibut, albacore, or shark, you may want to only eat that occasionally, tuna and trout, maybe a few times a week. And salmon you can kind of eat whenever you want because the mercury levels are low. It's the same with fatty meats, can also bioconcentrate pesticides and herbicides in animals. And then lead can be from contaminated water, lead pipes, or paint. I think for the most part, we've gotten rid of most of the paint, but if you live in an old house, that might be a source. And then there's household sources. Obviously water, that's always a big concern. Cookware, what are you storing your food in? Are you storing it in plastic? Are you trying to store it in glass or metal containers? There's soaps and cosmetics, what we're putting on our skin, cleaners, which, go on our skin and in our air. And then, do you have a nice green lawn? Is it being sprayed 6-7 times a year by a lawn service? And they're spraying chemicals and, and pesticides all over the lawn. And then, of course, our air quality, both inside and outside. This is from the Environmental Working Group. So the Environmental Working Group has a section on cleaners specifically. So I just looked up, I think a lot of us have, Lysol spray for just, especially like since COVID, maybe we're Lysoling everywhere in our house, but what that does is it got an F, which I think was like one of the worst scores. It was A, B, C, D, and F. Sorry. And then down here, it says, what are the health concerns here? Low risk of cancer, but high risk of developmental reproductive toxicity. And then allergy, irritation, asthma. So it kind of breaks it down and tells us what are the health concerns in regards to the different things. That's just one thing I looked up on mine. So it's easy to go on that. You can make yourself insane, but it's easy enough to go on that website and kind of check out, some of the things you have in your house and, maybe see what things might be better as far as toxicity goes. And then water. So water, there could be groundwater contamination from lots of things. We live on a farm, on a bunch of farmland, or maybe you're near into some industrial area. I think Bucks County has a fair amount of issues with water contamination. I lived in Warminster for the first part of my, when my kids were really little. And, that groundwater turns out was contaminated with PFAS, which is because of the Naval Air Development Center and Willow Grove Air Force Base and the firefighting foam that they use that got absorbed into the ground, and it's a forever chemical, and it's contaminated the water. So groundwater contamination is a big deal, and you don't always see that sometimes I feel like that doesn't make the news, but we know that PFAS increases the risk of, I know, bladder cancer for sure, and I think there's some other cancers associated with it. And then, you can do water testing to kind of see, what's in your water. There's filtration systems. And, if you really want to be aggressive, you get a reverse osmosis system, which is going to pretty much remove everything from your water. The environmental working group, again, that same one that has a lot of that information, also has a tap water database. So you can go in there and plug in your zip code and plug in kind of who your water municipality is, and they can give you kind of what the water testing showed in that area for whatever they tested it for. So you can actually see that on the environmental working group. I have well water, and also we had arsenic, and I was really concerned about glyphosate because we have cornfields and soybean fields, so that's always being sprayed. So we were thinking about getting a reverse osmosis system. So what I did is this is one of the big laboratories, which is National Testing Laboratories, watercheck.com. They have like 3 or 4 different level tests. So if you're on well water and you wanted to do testing, that will test for heavy metals, it will test for definite pesticides and herbicides. So I did the full test on that, and actually our water was good. So I decided I don't need a reverse osmosis system. And then I also wanted to do PFAS testing because I know like Central Bucks East had some PFAS in the water. Briefly, they had to put some filtration systems in, and actually our PFAS testing came back negative. So we decided not to do the reverse osmosis system because the reverse osmosis system takes out all the minerals of your water. Also, it gives it a very flat taste, and some people have to mineralize their water with that. So filtration is an option, but reverse osmosis system, if you have like organic, PFAS or things like that, is probably going to be the only thing that gets that out. Cookware. Cookware, we recommend, I think most people know we want to avoid Teflon. That has I think it's PFOA in it, PFOS, or I think it's a little bit different. But Teflon is pretty toxic, and it gets in your food, especially like once that coating starts to deteriorate. It also must cause some issues in the air. And I have chickens. So I've had chickens probably for about 16 years. And I'm on a chicken Facebook group, and I saw one day that somebody was so upset because they had their baby chicks in the kitchen with them, and apparently they cooked on Teflon, and all the chickens died. And they put it up they didn't know why. And here, if you cook on Teflon with like little baby chicks, will kill them. So that's pretty toxic. And then aluminum, we get a lot of aluminum exposure, so we try to avoid it in the cookware. And obviously we don't want to cook in plastic because that leaches out chemicals from the plastic that we don't want to be exposed to. So things that usually are pretty good: cast iron, stainless steel, ceramic coating. So ceramic coatings are pretty safe as long as they're high quality and don't, you have to just check the label and be sure they don't have any, harsh chemicals in them. But if you get a high quality ceramic coating and the coating is intact, once the coating starts to break up, you need to replace it. Porcelain coated cast iron or glassware is good to cook in. Harder to clean, but Barmaid's Helper is the best thing ever for stainless steel. Have you guys heard of that? That's like
Isn't it Barkeeper's Friend, Stacey? Not
Barmaid's Helper, Barkeeper's Friend. You're right, it's Barkeeper's Friend.
It's Barkeeper's Friend. Barmaid's Helper.
I have not looked that up on the EWG working group for
Oh
cleaners.
my God.
It was close. It was close.
That is why I love you so much.
All right. Cosmetics. We really have to be aware of your cosmetics because, and I'm talking about like lotions, shampoo, health, body self-care products. Your skin has very good absorption. That's why we use it. That's why, fentanyl patches for pain work. And that's why estrogen patches for hormone replacement work, because your skin absorbs things very easily. One of the things that I think I looked up a couple years ago for a talk was the aluminum deodorants, right? Because aluminum is a heavy metal that we don't need. It's a non-essential heavy metal that we don't need to be exposed to. And the thought was that the aluminum in antiperspirants would not be absorbed by your body, but they are. They see aluminum in the tissue near the axilla from aluminum deodorants. Now, aluminum, by the way, some of the heavy metals do have effects on the estrogen receptor. So they can have positive effects on the estrogen receptor. Now they don't, I don't know that there's been a definite link between aluminum and breast cancer. There's been studies, but it's very hard. How do you retrospectively see how much deodorants that people use? But, it definitely has some absorption that was thought not to occur. And that could be your cosmetics, like I said, lipstick, your whatever, your skin products. So the Environmental Working Group does also have a website, on their website has a database called Skin Deep. And that Skin Deep, it looks and categorizes all your kind of self-care products. So that's a good place to look if you want to kind of, check out what you're using. Yucca app, I don't know why I put that there. A Yucca app, I meant to look to see. I know the Yucca app. Have you guys heard of? I don't know if you guys have heard of the Yucca app. That's a great one to look if you're buying stuff at the store. Maybe like you want to buy a protein bar and you're like, is this bad or good? You can look on the Yucca app to test that out. I don't know if it has cosmetics on there or not. This is like we use Pantene soup, shampoo and conditioner. Go high end here, but Pantene came back at 4, so it's a 1 to 10 scale. So it's it's not horrible, but it's there. Cancer risk was low. Reproductive toxicity was low, but maybe allergies and immunotoxicity was a little higher. And then it has some ingredients in it that maybe aren't approved for use in other countries like the Europe or Japan. And then this is my latest mascara that my daughter turned me on to. And I looked this one up and that came up fair, but this was the one that concerned me is developmental and reproductive toxicity. I don't know if you're using enough of it to be effective, but that's a concern if you have young girls using this, and then it does have, again, some ingredients in it that may or may not be approved in other countries. So some of these, I thought was something interesting is some of these different toxins can cause obesity. We know that they can cause, affect diabetes. Some of them are considered obesogens. And those are some like, we talked about BPA, which is a plasticizer, the nonstick cookware, some of the pesticides, some of the commercial detergents, and flame retardants. Flame retardants are in our clothing. That's I think why you wash the clothes before you wear them. But those sometimes are in clothing or in our furniture. And then there's high fructose corn syrup. I think has been pretty that's getting removed from a lot of stuff. But we know that we think that causes obesity. And I don't even know why DES is in there. I don't even think we use DES anymore. But antipsychotics, antidepressants sometimes can cause weight gain. So sometimes it's not always just what you're eating. Sometimes it's a combination of, toxins you're exposed to as well. Microplastics are pretty ubiquitous. Plastics really never break apart. They just get smaller and smaller. So microplastics are anything less than 5 millimeters in size. And then there's nanoplastics, which are 1,000 nanometers or less. And these plastics are pretty ubiquitous. They're found in seafood. They're found so if you're getting seafood that's farmed, there's going to be a higher percentage of those fish that contain microplastics than if you're getting fish from the sea, free fish. And it's a little lower, but even in those fish that are kind of free fish, sorry, I am forgetting, what is it called, Beth? It's you're either you're farm raised or you're
Wild caught.
Wild caught, thank you, or free fish.
Free fish. Stacey, have you had your level checked this evening for intoxication? Because you're silly, and I love it.
Oh my gosh. No, I always have retrieval issues.
It's okay. Here's the deal. If my IQ was as high as yours, I would have trouble finding my words too. I'll take you exactly as you are, though.
Great. Oh, you can get that. So, I think we went back. We didn't really talk about food storage, but or bottled water. When you're drinking bottled water, you're exposed to plastics, and you can be exposed to microplastics. And if you're using, plastic food storage, you have microplastics, and plastics contain chemicals like plasticizers. So, anything you can do to try to be plastic free around your food is probably beneficial. Clothing too. So nylon is a big source of microplastics. And, think about what your bedding is. A lot of the dust in your house is microplastics from breakdown of those different plastics that we use for clothing or for bedding in our house. And that can be observed through the dermis. So you can absorb it through the skin, through the intestines, anywhere it's touching you, really. Because we're talking about little small ones, and it does cross the blood-brain barrier. I don't know if any of you guys know this, but the blood-brain barrier is a special layer in our body that a lot of drugs and chemicals that get into our body can't get into our brain because there's a special layer there, but microplastics can cross it. All right, so how do we manage? You can't, you can make yourself insane, try to manage all this. But I always say you make small changes where you can, and you can't control your environment. You control what you can in your environment, and then the rest of it you just can't do anything about. You have to live your life, right? But we can reduce exposure. So some of the things we talked about. Also, alcohol does affect our phase 1 detoxification. So alcohol is a big risk factor. Heavy metals, herbicides and insecticides, some of the things we can do, not spraying our lawn, trying to buy those, herbicides, the clean 15 or the dirty dozen. So reducing exposure. Another thing that's super important is improved nutrition. We talk a lot, I try to talk a lot about nutrition. I encourage, people to talk to a nutritionist. But that all those little phytonutrients and all those different vitamins really, and amino acids, which are from proteins, we need all that to be able to biotransform these toxins and detoxify ourselves, and as well as run our mitochondria and everything else. But super important, it takes a lot of these different vitamins, has cofactors for these different enzymes that are able to metabolize for us. And then improve our lifestyle. That could be sleep, stress, relationships, exercise. Most of our detoxification occurs during sleep. So sleep is super important for detoxification. If you're not sleeping well, you're stressed, you're not going to have as good a detoxification. Relationship is important because relationship helps us with our stress, and people who are in good relationship tend to be healthier and live longer. Meaning relationship, not necessarily you're married, but you have relationship with friends, family. You kind of have your friend family or your family. And then
your friends and partners that help you find words when you're missing them.
Yes,
like that.
I appreciate that. And then improve gut. Leaky gut means that the lining of your gut is damaged. And when the lining of your gut is damaged, you get exposed to a lot more stuff toxins can cross into your bloodstream a lot more easily than if you have a healthy gut lining. And toxin, if you have a food allergy, you're eating crappy food, or alcohol can affect your gut lining, you're going to be exposed to more toxins. So eating that healthy food and supporting your gut bacteria. What's biotransformation? With your bacteria, you want to make sure you're supporting your healthy bacteria. Fiber is important for your gut bacteria. Fermented foods can be good for your gut bacteria. You want to make sure we feed ourselves and we feed our gut bacteria. And fiber also helps to bind toxins. So fiber binds toxins and helps them get out of your body, because we don't absorb fiber. Okay, so there's lots of things we can do. I think I briefly mentioned SNPs, which are SNPs are changes in your DNA that may affect your ability to metabolize different toxins. It's something I think about when I see somebody who has multiple medical problems and, maybe lots of inflammation. The big one, Beth's favorite one, which is the MTHFR gene. That affects methylation, and methylation is a big way that we detoxify. So sometimes, if somebody's having trouble and we can't figure it out, sometimes we can check for methylation defects, or, other, there's glucuronidation, there's hydroxylation, there's different ways that we get rid of toxins. So SNPs like that can be tested. And then we just want to make sure we're eating, again, lots of fruits and vegetables of all different colors to get all the phytonutrients and vitamins that we need to run this system. So that's all I have for you guys.
Stop sharing so you can take questions.
Oh,
That was a great talk, Stace. I really enjoyed it.
That was wonderful. And I will say that a lot of these words are now familiar to me since having a grandson, because my daughter and her husband are all about the phthalates and the microplastics and all of that. One of my questions for you is, obviously so much stuff comes in plastic. I was just looking at my refrigerator, and we have the spinach, even though it's organic, it comes in a plastic container, and the ketchup, and I try not to get the plastic bags when we're getting herbs, but then it gets all over your bin and your refrigerator. So what do you suggest about that?
well, so buying some, like, what you can't get rid of it all. It's like impossible, but buying your stuff local,
Yeah.
like a lot of your fruits and vegetables local are not going to then become packaged.
Okay.
So, that's, yeah, otherwise it's very hard. That's what I mean. Like, to go plastic free is like really hard, right? And then
It's really hard.
like, I got like all glass containers. I got like lids that are sometimes made out of silicone, which doesn't break down like plastics do, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
chemicals in it. So silicone container, like they have those silicone bags that you can use for food storage. I really try to
Okay.
put anything I'm storing in glass. You could, potentially, remove it. I don't know that it's going to do that much, but I don't think you can get rid of plastics completely. It's almost impossible. But it's, buying as local as you can, buying in, if you can get it out of, you can buy stuff out of plastic, but yeah, there's certain things it's just impossible to get out of plastic.
Is it as bad if something is cold, as opposed to, like, I never put anything that is hot,
Yeah,
or
well,
anything that I've cooked for that matter in plastic?
Yeah, heat definitely can cause more leaching of the chemicals.
Okay.
Or, yeah, I don't make myself nuts either, too. Like, I reluctantly drank a bottle of water from plastic today. More so, I just hate buying plastic, but I hate, like, if you come to my house, I rarely have plastic water. Nobody wants to drink my water because everyone wants to drink from a plastic bottle. I'm like, I got the best water.
Yeah.
You should come to my house and get water. I just fully tested it. But yeah, it's I think bottles and trying to bring, and then what? You buy a Stanley and they put a plastic straw in it.
Right. Well, now it's like a cellulose straw, right?
I don't know what they're made of.
They have the
Silicone,
paper ones. They stop the plastic, I think, a lot of places.
yeah, and but you don't know what they're, how do they get that paper straw to be a paper straw?
Yeah, right.
I don't,
Exactly.
so like stainless steel straws. I try to get my kids to drink out of stainless steel straws, or not drink out of a straw.
Yeah.
I always think if you're drinking out of a straw too much, you're going to get those wrinkles around your.
Oh, I'm a big, yeah. I'm drinking my green juice right now, no straw. In
Yeah.
a
And I don't think, yeah, you can't do it like, I think it takes time to figure out ways around that. I mean, I buy romaine lettuce, it's in a plastic bag. Like, why is everything in a plastic bag? If I go to like Spring Creek Market, nothing's in a
great
plastic
place.
bag, right? Nothing's in a
Yeah.
plastic bag. Then you get home and you put in a plastic bag, right, to keep it fresh. But you can get different bags. I mean, there's definitely different bags available out there that you can use for freshness. But it does take, I think, time to, just be aware of it and make changes where you can.
Yeah. Slowly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to change all my sheets actually after doing this. Like the microplastic thing with the like, you buy the bamboo sheets, but then they're mixed with polyester or something. Like if you don't buy pure bamboo sheets, that's fine, but or pure
Right.
100% cotton.
100%.
100% cotton. That's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, because that's your bedroom. Like
I actually just bought a very expensive crib mattress, even though my granddaughter's probably only going to be in Sedona 2 weeks a year. But my daughter-in-law did the research on all the cribs, and we got a cotton mattress because a lot of the fire retardants and the things they put in the mattresses, they were put there to mean well, but that stuff leaches out. And I've got a 100% bamboo mattress cover. I should be so lucky in my bed, and also 100% cotton sheets. But you know what? Following the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, but like you can't change your diet in a day, right? You can't like go
No.
from, because you'll fail. Like I would say, like make a small change this week, and then hello. Oh, did I
You're
lose?
there.
No, you're here. We're here.
Oh, okay.
Dorothy B is just sharing some information.
Oh, okay. So, like if you're trying to make, you set a goal, like you want to, but you have to make small steps sometimes to get there. Otherwise, you try to make change too much at one time, and you can't do it, and then you're just like, the heck, I'm not bothering. Like, so, maybe you change your sheets to all cotton. Just, your sheets are boring. Just replace them with cotton sheets, or buy what you can, loose carrots instead of carrots in the bag, or just small and definitely with food storage, that's really tough, right? Ziploc bags they're hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
I wrap my sandwiches, I use like wax paper.
Yeah.
Like, so like if I make a sandwich, which I don't make many sandwiches for myself, but if I do make a sandwich, I'll wrap it in wax paper to try to avoid putting it in
parchment.
or parchment paper. And you can get parchment paper that's not bleached also. Or butcher paper. I buy meat from
butcher paper is great.
Herring Brothers, they wrap it in butcher paper. It lasts like, you get it out and it's like a year old and it's not even freezer burned. So, I think there's options. It's just they're not as readily accessible.
Yeah.
I put a couple links in the chat. I don't know if everybody got to see those, but Yucca was one of them for food, and then Healthy Living is the EWG app for different products. So I looked up my shampoo, my conditioner on there, and then there's also one for supplements too called Supco. So if anybody wants to try those, they've been really helpful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Stacey, that was a great talk. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
go detoxify.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I think, Carrie, you hit the nail on the head. I have learned more about cleaning up my house, the cleaning agents, the laundry detergent, every single thing because my daughter-in-law has done such a deep dive because of the MTHFR stuff. The biggest thing was, most of you don't know this, but folic acid is in 100% of anything processed. Every cracker, every piece of bread, except for Dave's Killer Bread, pretty much anything in any of what I call the center aisles of the grocery store. And I don't have a full-blown homozygous MTHFR, but I got a partial. And so that means that, like, at a certain level, I stop clearing folic acid and turning it into 5-methylfolate. And so it's something that I knew about it in the back of my head, but until my granddaughter was born with a tongue tie and had to have surgery at 8 weeks, and I realized that it could have been avoided if my daughter-in-law was given the right prenatal vitamin. Also, infertility, one of the biggest causes is folic acid, where people can't detoxify it and they have miscarriages. So,
Crazy.
and I do believe that it's directly connected to a lot of the cancers we're seeing because we can't clear the toxins. And my husband's family doesn't have a gene per se for cancer, but his sister had breast cancer twice. His mom had pancreatic cancer, thyroid cancer. All the guys got prostate cancer, and the MTHFR is homozygous in his family. And so, a life of not being able to detoxify. And the other thing too is alcohol. Over a long course of time will ruin your ability to it makes you insulin resistant, and so your A1C will be elevated. So I feel Stacey and I both, I'm not speaking for her and me, but I am speaking for both of us because we both are kind of like, we're at a point in our career where we've been doing all the right things for the right reasons all these years with our patients. And I feel like for the first time in my medical career, I'm not being gaslit anymore about the importance of environmental toxins, of exposure, of nutrition. And, seeing that nutrition is going to be a required course for med students makes me just want to scream from the top of my lungs. It's like, we got nothing in med school. We got zero. It wasn't important.
It wasn't considered important.
We got 50 freaking lectures on pharmacology of what drug to give for what symptom. But you will see over the course of the next 2 years, Dr. Krisher and I are moving really to prevention and to alleviation of a lot of stuff. Shino, who's on here, she's our resident who drug that young buck to Mexico with me this year, but she's already on the right train in surgery of recognizing that you can cut something out, but you can't prevent it from coming back, and you don't cure it just by cutting it out. Like, we need to do all these other aspects. So just stay tuned for, I know a lot of you participated in the Mind Vibe trial. We're going to have some trials coming up utilizing a new technology called ICR, ion cyclotron resonance, which I will get on the docket for this fall to get you guys a lecture. But it's something that we're seeing some pretty amazing transformations with this technology. So we're just beginning to learn, and we're thrilled to do it. So
yes. And so I've been studying functional medicine, hopefully working on certification, because that's really looking at what we don't look at, which is, a lot of these things that we treat, which are cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure, are really symptoms and not diseases. They're symptoms of an underlying issue that can be sometimes managed with health, making changes health-wise and treating the root, what they call the root cause, right?
Yep.
Very popular these days, root cause. So anyway, thanks everybody for your audience.
Thank you so much.
Yay,
This was great.
Thank
And
you,
where can
Stacey.
Thank
where
you.
can we get the
Thank you.
we get the recording, Stacey?
It'll be on the website within the next couple of days.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thanks
YouTube
everybody.
channel.
guys.
Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
night. All right.
Bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.